The music was soft, violins and laughter twining together under golden light. Crystal glasses clinked, candles shimmered. Everything looked perfect. It was my daughter's wedding, and I wasn't supposed to be there. I stood at the entrance of the grand hall, just far enough for the lights to touch my shoes but not my face. In my left hand, a small bouquet, daisies, her mother's favourite. In my right, an envelope holding a cheque that had paid for half of the day she was about to call the happiest of her life. Guests turned to look, their whispers weaving through the music. "Who's that? He doesn't belong here." And then she saw me, my daughter, the same girl who used to hold my hand when she was scared of thunder, froze at the sight of me. Her smile vanished, the colour drained from her face. For a second, I thought she might run to me. Instead, she took a breath, straightened her shoulders, and said words I'll never forget. "Dad, you're not welcome here." The room fell silent. The music stuttered, then stopped entirely. Someone near the front cleared their throat. Another laughed nervously. But all I could hear was the echo of her voice, small and sharp, cutting through the years we'd built together. A man, her soon-to-be husband's father, stepped forward, polite but firm. "I think it's best if you leave," he said. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I just stood there, holding the flowers that suddenly felt too heavy, too alive for a room that had no place for me. And in that silence, I felt something inside me die, and something else wake up. Because I paid for that wedding, half of it. The food, the music, the lights, my money, my sweat, my name. I watched her turn away, watched her walk toward the altar under a canopy of golden light that I'd helped pay for. And as the doors closed in my face, I slid my hand into my jacket pocket. My fingers brushed against a small card, a wedding invitation from years ago when she was just a child. In her handwriting, crooked and sweet, were 6 words that used to mean everything. "You'll walk me down the aisle someday." She was right. I did, just not the way she expected. Long before the wedding, before the silence and shame, there was a promise. The hospital room was dim and still. Machines hummed softly. Rain tapped against the window. My wife's hand trembled in mine, her fingers already too light, her voice barely a whisper. "Take care of her, John," she said. "Make sure she grows up knowing she's loved. And when the day comes, walk her down the aisle for both of us." I nodded, though the words caught in my throat. "I promise," I said. "I'll get her there." She smiled faintly. "Good. Then I can rest." That was the last time I ever saw her eyes open. I kept that promise like it was a duty carved into my bones. There were no vacations, no new suits, no second chances. Just work, long hours, cold coffee, and the constant hum of machinery in the background. I took every overtime shift, patched roofs on weekends, fixed engines under freezing rain. Some nights I'd come home so tired I couldn't feel my hands. But then she'd run to me, my little girl, with those same eyes her mother had. "Did you fix the big truck again, Dad?" "Yeah," I'd say, pretending my back didn't ache. "That truck's tougher than me." She'd laugh, small and proud. That sound was worth every scar on my hands. Years passed. She grew up, beautiful and bright, too smart for the quiet town we lived in. I watched her pack for college, every book neatly stacked, every dream too big for my old truck. She hugged me at the door and whispered, "When I get married, you'll be the first person I hug, Dad." Those words stayed with me. I replayed them every night after she left, like a prayer, like proof that I'd done something right. So I started saving, little by little, every paycheck, every spare dollar. I opened a separate envelope, wrote one word on it, wedding. For 10 years, that envelope stayed hidden in the top drawer of my dresser, untouched, unspent, sacred. It was more than money. It was a father's promise, sealed in paper, waiting for the day he'd keep his word. And when that day finally came, I brought it with me, not knowing that the very promise I'd built my life on was the same one that would break me. The hotel lobby smelled of flowers and champagne, the kind of smell that used to mean joy. I straightened my tie in the glass doors, took a breath, and stepped forward. Before I could reach the entrance, a man in a black suit held out his arm. "Sorry, sir," he said with a polite smile. "Guests only." I blinked. "I'm the bride's father." He glanced down at the tablet in his hand, scrolling. His brow furrowed. "I'm afraid you're not on the list." The air in my chest turned to ice. "Check again." He did. Twice. Then, almost apologetically, he repeated, "You're not listed here, sir." Through the glass doors, I saw her, my daughter, laughing, radiant, glowing in white. She was posing for photos near the Arch of Roses. When her eyes caught mine, the laughter died. She froze, lips parting, as if to say something. Then she shook her head, took a few hesitant steps forward, and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Please, Dad, don't make a scene." The words hit harder than a punch. Behind her, the photographer waved. "We're ready." Her groom smiled, perfect and polished, placing a hand on her back. She turned away. The guard stepped aside gently. "Sir, please." I didn't fight it. I just stood there for a moment, watching the doors close. The sound of the crowd inside rose. Laughter, clinking glasses, applause. The ceremony had begun. Outside, I could hear every cheer through the thin glass. It was the sound of a father's erasure. A young waiter rushed past me, his tray wobbling. He dropped a stack of papers near my feet, the printed guest list. I bent down to help him gather them, but one page caught my eye. Next to the title Bride's Family Guests, a single line was crossed out. Father of the bride, John Harris. Next to it, written neatly in pen, Stepfather, William Daniels. I stared at that line until it blurred. For a long moment I couldn't move. Then I reached into my jacket and pulled out the old wedding card. Her childhood handwriting fading from time. "You'll walk me down the aisle someday." The ink was smudged now, almost gone, just like me, just like... 2 days after the wedding, the congratulations stopped coming. No calls, no photos, no thank you notes, just silence. I stayed up that night staring at the envelope I'd given her, the one marked "For your big day," from Dad. I told myself she'd call, that maybe she was just busy or embarrassed. But deep down, I knew something else was wrong. Then, one evening my phone buzzed. A message, no name, just a photo attachment and 5 words. "You should see this, John." It was from Rachel, a woman I knew from the catering crew. She'd worked every event in town, and she'd been kind to me that day, offering me water after I'd been turned away. I opened the photo. It was a scanned contract, wedding coordination agreement, Harris, us Daniels. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then my eyes caught a single line near the bottom. 50% of total cost paid via transfer from father's account. But next to the word father, someone had made an edit. My name, John Harris, had been crossed out. In its place, typed cleanly and neatly, Mr. William Daniels, stepfather. I stared at the screen for a long time. The walls around me felt smaller, the air heavier. "They erased me," I whispered, "even from the receipts." Rachel texted again, "There's more, check your mail tomorrow." The next morning, I found a large envelope shoved through my door. Inside was a letter, cream-coloured, embossed with gold. "To Mr. and Mrs. Daniels," it began, "thank you for trusting us with your family legacy." Family legacy. I read it twice, the words burning holes in the page. They hadn't just replaced my name. They'd replaced my place in her story. I sat there at the kitchen table, the morning light crawling across the floor, touching the letter, the envelope, the checkbook I'd used to pay for it all. The coffee on the counter had gone cold. My hands were shaking. That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. This was a rewrite, and I was being written out. I didn't call him to fight. I called him to make peace. At least, that's what I let him believe. He showed up at my house dressed like success, slick suit, gold cufflinks, a smile polished for cameras. The same smile that had fooled everyone but me. "John," he said, holding out his hand. "I'm glad you reached out. It's time we put all this behind us, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think it's time." The papers were already on the table, a tidy stack of legal documents, clipped neatly, stamped with the seal of a financial settlement. I told him they were to finalize reimbursement and transfer his remaining wedding expenses into a neutral account. He scanned the first page, then smirked. "So you finally came around. Good man." He didn't read past the second paragraph. Men like him never do. He signed every page without blinking. When the pen left the final line, my friend Mark, who had been quietly sitting in the corner, stood up, holding out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Harris," he said smoothly. "I'll notarize this for you." Michael nodded distractedly. "Yeah, sure, whatever makes it official." He didn't notice the small badge clipped just beneath Mark's coat. IRS Special Investigator. That was the moment everything he owned, and everything he thought he controlled, stopped being his. 3 days later, the headline hit every screen in town. Local businessman exposed for laundering wedding funds. His photo, the same smug grin, plastered under bold black letters. His investors pulled out. His company collapsed. His accounts were frozen. I watched the chaos unfold from my kitchen table, coffee gone cold in my hands. Then the screen cut to live footage from a press conference. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing. My daughter stood beside him, pale, shaking, tears streaming down her face. "He told me the money came from him," she sobbed. "I didn't know it was my father's." The room erupted. Questions flew. He tried to speak, but the microphones drowned him out. I turned down the volume. For a long while, I just watched the image, her crying, him breaking, the whole world finally seeing what I already knew. No smile, no satisfaction, just silence, the kind that comes after a storm. I didn't call him to fight. I called him to make peace. At least, that's what I let him believe. He showed up at my house dressed like success, slick suit, gold cufflinks, a smile polished for cameras. The same smile that had fooled everyone but me. "John," he said, holding out his hand. "I'm glad you reached out. It's time we put all this behind us, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think it's time." The papers were already on the table, a tidy stack of legal documents, clipped neatly, stamped with the seal of a financial settlement. I told him they were to finalize reimbursement and transfer his remaining wedding expenses into a neutral account. He scanned the first page, then smirked. "So you finally came around. Good man." He didn't read past the second paragraph. Men like him never do. He signed every page without blinking. When the pen left the final line, my friend Mark, who had been quietly sitting in the corner, stood up, holding out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Harris," he said smoothly. "I'll notarize this for you." Michael nodded distractedly. "Yeah, sure, whatever makes it official." He didn't notice the small badge clipped just beneath Mark's coat. IRS Special Investigator. That was the moment everything he owned, and everything he thought he controlled, stopped being his. 3 days later, the headline hit every screen in town. Local businessman exposed for laundering wedding funds. His photo, the same smug grin, plastered under bold black letters. His investors pulled out. His company collapsed. His accounts were frozen. I watched the chaos unfold from my kitchen table, coffee gone cold in my hands. Then the screen cut to live footage from a press conference. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing. My daughter stood beside him, pale, shaking, tears streaming down her face. "He told me the money came from him," she sobbed. "I didn't know it was my father's." The room erupted. Questions flew. He tried to speak, but the microphones drowned him out. I turned down the volume. For a long while, I just watched the image, her crying, him breaking, the whole world finally seeing what I already knew. No smile, no satisfaction, just silence, the kind that comes after a storm. It was raining the night she came back. The kind of rain that doesn't fall. It lingers, like guilt. I heard the knock before I saw her car in the driveway. When I opened the door, she was standing there, soaked, eyes red, mascara washed away. For a second, she looked like the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders, lost, scared, waiting for her father to make the world right again. But this time, I couldn't. She stepped inside without a word, water dripping onto the old wooden floor. "Dad," she started, but the word cracked halfway. I didn't answer. I just waited. She looked around the house, the same photos, the same furniture, the same silence that had followed me since her mother died. "I saw everything," she said finally. "The news, the files, the investigation, everything." I nodded slowly. "Then you know the truth." She took a long, shaky breath. "I knew, Dad." The room went still. Her voice broke again, barely a whisper. "He made me choose between the image I built and the man who built me." She turned away, pressing her trembling hands to her face. I was scared. Not of him, of being the girl with the broken family, the one everyone pitied. I thought if I stayed quiet, I could keep everything together. Silence. Then softer. "You raised me to be kind, Dad. I wish I hadn't been." Something inside me cracked. Not anger, something deeper. Sadness that had waited too long to be heard. I walked to the drawer by the couch and pulled out the small worn card, the one I'd carried in my pocket that day. Her eyes widened when she saw it. "You'll walk me down the aisle someday," she read aloud, her voice trembling. I placed it in her hands. The ink had faded, but the promise hadn't. I looked at her, not the woman she'd become, but the child I'd once held, and said quietly, "You walked away first." She tried to speak, but no words came, and for the first time in years, I didn't reach out to comfort her. Some lessons, even love can't soften. The sun was setting behind the old event hall, the same one that had once been filled with laughter, music, and the lie they called love. Now it stood empty, silent. The wind carried the faint sound of a banner flapping against the wall, its gold letters peeling away. I stood at the entrance, the light bleeding over the cracked pavement. In my hand, an empty envelope and the faded wedding card. The words, "You'll walk me down the aisle someday," barely visible now, ghosted by time. I turned the card over once, twice, before sliding it into the envelope and setting both on the steps. The door creaked behind me. A young reporter's voice cut through the wind. "Mr. Harris," she asked softly, "do you regret what you did?" I looked out toward the sunset, orange fading into grey, like the line between mercy and vengeance. "Forgiveness or revenge," I said quietly. "Maybe they're the same thing, just told from different sides." She hesitated. "And justice?" I met her eyes. Some justice isn't meant for courts. The wind lifted the envelope, carrying it into the dying light. As the screen faded to black, my voice lingered, calm, steady, final. "Would you have done the same?"